On 29 February 2024, the Zambian Republican President, His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, declared drought as a national disaster and emergency. This follows erratic precipitation as a consequence of widening El Nino effects earlier focused by the Famine Early Warning Network systems in 2023. El Nino weather is projected to persist to the end of 2024 into early 2025, and this will likely have adverse impacts on rainfall intensity in southern Africa. Zambia estimates that 1.1 million hectares of areas planted for maize has thus far been destroyed, of the 2.2 million in total, accounting for 50%. This is expected to dent crop output and yields for the 2023-2024 farming season by close to half, with a dry spell expected to pilfer into March and ahead, affecting over 1 million farming households. Zambia's maize production is 93% driven by subsistence and small-scale farmers that are sharply exposed to drought effects. As part of the 2024 initiatives to drive a strong shift in agricultural policy from the traditional demand side, characterized by price interventions, to boosting the supply side aimed at stimulating productivity and wealth creation. This will be supported by a mix of technology methods in precision farming, increased investments in road, storage barns and power line access, agri-finance credit extension, and above all, insurance cover. Zambia's 2024 budget allocation will nonetheless see potential alterations to cater for emergency interventions in the area of precision irrigation to mitigate the threat of drought. Being a twin quagmire, drought impacts will weigh power generation capacity given Zambia's 85% dependency on hydro for electricity production. The energy sector is expected to take a negative Q of between 430 to 520 megawatts by December 2024. Similar quantums recorded in the 2014-2015 period that saw deficits widen to as high as 650 megawatts. Power rationing is forecast to range anywhere between 6 to 12 hours of load management, which is an inhibitor to manufacturing and factory pulse. Dam levels at the Kariba remain alarmingly low and could trigger further rationing of water allocation between Zambia and Zimbabwe to impact generation in the two nations, according to the Zambezi River Authority. As of 26 February 2024, dam levels at the Kariba were 15.71% compared to 13.38% a year ago. In mitigation, the Zambian government will seek to continue with importation of power from the Southern Africa power pool, specifically Mozambique, which is an additional strain on fiscal resources at a time the copper producer is rationalizing its public finance purse. In the labyrinth of a debt restructure whose negotiations have protracted, the MinFin targets reaching an agreement by the first half of 2024, a critical milestone for Zambia, with the most recent development being Zambia inking an agreement with China and India. In the interim, the Zambian government will leverage off the defense forces to help with irrigation capacity to help boost food production, while the Food Reserve Agency FRA will enhance community sales of maize to the vulnerable and will work hand in hand with the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU on provision of purchasable corn in vulnerable communities. Zambia has extended its call for assistance to both the local and international communities to support in any way they can. In the long term, water harvesting and investments in precision irrigation remain critical, while development of alternative energy sources such as solar, wind, and geothermal cannot be overemphasized. The drought predicament is a manifestation of environmental and climate threats that will give the 2024 growth focused a likely haircut. The quagmire comes at a time Zambia grapples with rising inflation at 13.5% printed for February, tightening monetary conditions with a 26% cash reserve ratio, 12.5% benchmark prime rate, and above all, foreign exchange supply bottlenecks amid muted mining productivity. Zambia is on the cusp of a breakthrough in the faculty of debt restructure, where it is hoped that the authorities will soon get past comparability of treatment for the bilateral and private creditors. Drought could potentially breed credit risk pressures as agribusiness counterparties strain banking portfolio through cash flow strains and struggles with repayment capacities. Whether primary or secondary agricultural exposures, the effects are far-fetched and could result in rising food prices, which could drive consumer pricing index wider than current levels. Rolling blackouts and power rationing for hours does increase the dependency on diesel for alternative power backups for entities that will rely on generators, which is an additional operational cost. Geopolitics of crude and times of foreign currency scarcity could waive factory pulse as measured by the Purchasing Managers Index, further sliding deeper into contraction. This could ultimately breed inflationary burdens onto end users, the consumers. The power deficit predicament also comes at a time the red metal producer is gearing up for increased production in the mining sector, which could strain the grid and worsen load management. The mines do gobble circa 55% of the energy grid. The inflation discussion does signal potential monetary tightening, which could keep interest rates elevated and could further transmit higher non-performing loans for the banking sector. Drought vividly adds to the already existing headwinds the Zambian economy faces. Earlier in February, Zambia's head of state hinted on potential changes in the agricultural budget in light of the looming drought effects. Last week, Zambia was graced with the presence of two key dignitaries, namely the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa, and Saudi Arabia's Agriculture, Environment and Water Minister, His Excellency Engineer Abdurrahman Abdul Mohsen, who courted President Hichilema, discussed with the UN delegation where climate change effects and the need for assistance in the area of irrigation, while the Saudi team will seek to partner with Zambia in the areas of critical minerals, capital mobilization, and investments in agribusiness. Saudi Arabia's corn yields are currently at 10 tons per planted hectare, which Zambia will seek to learn from. Zambia's head of state, Hakainde Hichilema, has assured the nation that despite the drought disaster announced, no Zambian will starve, as the authorities do all they can to mitigate the effects.